real stories of werewolves, of Dogman from history, from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
Mysterious werewolf behavior, including Dogman in the garbage cans, werewolf in the attic. But first, werewolf behind the bushes. Dear Scary Stories NYC, we had a werewolf-looking guy behind our house when I was a teenager. And now I'm an old lady, or middle-aged at least, and my brother is in his 50s as well. Back then I was a nerdy kid, but my bro was 2 years older and an athletic guy. He started losing his hair at age 25, but for a few years he was the Adonis of our neighborhood. The handsome guy, I mean. I had a number of friends who I know just hung out with me to get closer to my brother Johnny. I say all this so that you understand the context of what went down back when this weird Dogman, or whatever it was, came around. I was the first to spot the thing. I noticed it outside my window one night after watching one of those old nature documentaries on TV. Well, it was a new documentary back then. Anyway, it showed animal eye shine on camera, which I had never seen before, and it really creeped me out. But when I looked out my second-story bedroom window after seeing that doc on TV, I could have sworn I saw eye shine staring back at me from the bushes. I thought I must be imagining things, so I actually went and got Johnny from his room to come back and look out the window and tell me if this was real or not. My brother had not watched the same documentary as me, so he didn't even know what I meant when I said eye shine. It didn't really matter since the creatures seemed to have left before I got Johnny back there to check it out. Still, my brother believed me, and he asked me to let him know if I saw it again so he could get a glimpse of it too. Johnny hoped it was a Bigfoot or a bear or something that ate people. He was into horror movies, and he was a teenager, so he wanted it to be a monster, or at least a man-eater. In the morning, we asked our dad what the animal might have been, and he said hopefully it was just a dog or a cat. Then, with a straight face, he said it might be a gorilla, or a dinosaur. When he caught us looking at him wide-eyed, he burst out laughing and told us he was just joking. So I forget if it was that night or not, but soon after, Johnny and I were told to set the picnic table outside in the back since it was a hot night out. Too hot to eat indoors. I went back there first and I heard a slight noise from the woods ahead of me, behind our yard. There, in the bushes, I once again saw eye shine staring back at me. I froze on the spot, staring back at whatever that was. The eyes blinked at me, so I knew they were real. I would guess they were about 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and they were peeking out from between 2 bushes. Johnny came out of the house behind me, and I held my arm out so that he wouldn't pass me. He looked where I was looking, and he saw what I saw. Only when that creature looked at Johnny, its eyes got wide, and then it stood up, standing well over 6 feet, looming over those bushes. Johnny whispered, "It's Bigfoot, with a dog face." And the creature seemed even more fixated on him than before. Its dog tongue lolled out of its mouth, and it panted, looking very happy that my brother Johnny was there. The dog creature started to move forward through the bushes, clearly intending to come into our yard, when the back door opened and Mom barged out, screaming at Johnny for forgetting to bring the forks. Then she began bellowing at me for not setting the table yet, and the next thing I knew, the Dogman had run away in fear. Johnny and I tried to tell Mom that there was a big animal behind the yard and that we should eat inside. Mom was overheated on that hot night though, and so her reaction was just to ball her fist up and shout to the woods behind the yard, something like, "If any animal comes out of those woods while we're eating, I will personally clock them on the noggin." For Mom, this was practically sailor talk, and the Dogman seemed to grok how mad she was. He stayed away and he let us eat. Johnny and I used to joke that Mom should star in a werewolf movie, protecting a town from Wolfman or Dogman attack, but just being in a really cranky mood all the time. The monsters would go attack a town with quieter people. That's my idea. If you use it, then you owe me $1 million for licensing. Over dinner, we told Dad that we saw the animal again, and that it was a wolfman. Not only that, but it liked Johnny better than it liked me. Dad joked that it must be a truant officer then. He wasn't taking us very seriously at all. And then, that same night, as Johnny and I were cleaning up after dinner, Dad saw it. He saw the big Dogman werewolf guy squatting in the bushes near where we had seen him earlier, but not in exactly the same spot. Sure enough, he was staring at Johnny when he would come out of the house, then get bored when he went back inside. Dad threw some gravel in the creature's direction to make it scat, and he said the sound it made running away was loud enough that he could tell it was a large-sized animal. Very large. Dad wasn't laughing about this anymore. Mom still didn't believe a word of it, but Dad was now a witness, same as me and Johnny. He promised us he would get to the bottom of it one way or another. Dad's idea for how to deal with it got Mom pretty upset. It seems that Dad has some friends from when he was in the service who are now mercenaries. So Dad basically invited these paramilitary dudes to come and hunt with him through the woods behind our house, looking to bag themselves this Dogman that was into my brother. It was pretty scary. We didn't know what was going to happen, and everyone was upset all the time for the entire day and night. Those guys never found the Wolfman, though. 2 of them left, but 1 remained behind, and he camped in those woods for over a week, as I remember it. He slept in the day, he hunted Dogman at night. There came a night when we heard shots out there, and we all wondered, had he hit the creature, or had the creature gotten him? I ran with my father toward the sound of the gunfire, and we ran into his friend at his campsite. He still had his weapon out, and he was staring at the dark woods that we had been running toward. He said that the thing had been spying on him all night, but whenever he would look over, it would back away and disappear for a while. It was trying to remain in his periphery, so he started to observe it out of the corner of his eye as well as he could. Then, at a moment that seemed unpredictable, he turned and fired quickly at where the creature had been when he began to spin and fire. The guy was certain he missed, but just as sure that the creature was still in the area somehow, somewhere. That creeped me out, I'll be honest. I was glad it was Johnny that the monster had a crush on and not me. Well, this might seem like kind of an inconclusive ending, but we just sort of never heard from the Dogman again. The mercenary guy left after another few days, saying the creatures seemed to have left the area from what he could tell. I guess the Dogman just figured it might be better to hunt in an area that didn't have a paramilitary veteran mercenary for hire hunting him in it. Seems logical to me. In the time since this all happened, we've discussed the possibility that it might have been a female werewolf or Dogman, and that might be why the creature seems so interested in my brother. Johnny himself doesn't feel that way, though. Johnny says that the Dogman recognized him as a male of hunting age and felt threatened by his presence on his turf. He then stood up tall on his hind legs to show that he too could walk upright, and that he was an even more impressive hunter and warrior than Johnny. I always laugh when he announces this theory, since Johnny is neither a hunter nor a warrior. But I get what he's saying. The creature was trying to show dominance and scare a potential rival off his turf. Who knows? Maybe he's right. Maybe that explains the mysterious behavior of the werewolf behind the bushes. Dogman. In the garbage cans. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I used to have a problem with a Dogman that came around to go through my garbage cans at night. We had bear-proof cans, but this guy had thumbs. He could open anything a human could open. We had thought that we had raccoons, as we would hear noise out by the cans at night, and find the place a mess in the mornings. My wife and I both work from home, and we were going through such busy times at our jobs that it didn't occur to either one of us that raccoons cannot open bear-proof cans. My wife kept insisting that I needed to do something about the raccoons, and I kept asking her, well, what should I do? Then we would both argue and shout at each other in a very unproductive way. Since neither of us had a free second to deal with it, the cans remained the way they were, until one night, when I took the garbage out a little later than usual. At first it seemed as though everything were normal, and that there were no animals about. But as I walked closer to the cans, I began to notice that wet dog smell. I figured it was the garbage I was smelling, and I kept walking closer to the cans. But before I could open one and deposit my bag of garbage into it, a large dark form rose up from behind the row of large plastic and rubber garbage cans. When I say large, I mean taller than me, and I'm 5'11" and a half. It was a humanoid silhouette, but my heart began racing when I saw that he was wearing some kind of a monster mask, I guess. I mean, that must be what it was, 'cause he had a head like a dog. Then I wondered, what if he's a bear? But the body was too much like a human, including a wide chest, narrow waist, shoulders out to the sides, and paws that looked more like hands, including opposable thumbs. So was it a man in a bear costume, maybe? I stood frozen, unable to think or move. I was too surprised to even be at the fight or flight stage yet. I was still just stunned. And then that big guy leaned forward an inch from my head, and I thought he was going to bite my face off. That woke me up, and I dropped the garbage, moonwalking a few steps backward. The creature just missed biting into my nose, and I could smell his awful breath. For a second I looked into his mouth, straight down his throat. That was no costume mask. This was a real creature of some sort. The monster tore into the garbage bag I had dropped, and I took off running back to the house. Well, I told my wife what had just happened, and that our problem was not raccoons. I expected her to yell at me and correct me that there was no such thing as a man with a dog head. She surprised me, however, when she told me instead that she knew what was going on, and that she also had a relative who could take care of this for us. She never explained any of this to me, but it has to do with the native side of her family. She said she's not allowed to talk about it, or even name the creature, or else the problem will come back and start over. All I know is that an uncle of hers that I had never met before came out to our place, saged the house and property, and then he just seemed to walk out back and sort of sit there. I don't know if he took a nap or meditated or what, but he just sat there for a while. Honestly, it didn't look to me like he was doing anything at all. But when he decided he had daydreamed and sat doing nothing long enough, he stood up, walked back to us, and announced that the problem was taken care of. I burst out laughing. He hadn't done anything. Nevertheless, the Dogman never came back. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was a coincidence, like maybe it had already moved on. Maybe it had nothing to do with my wife's cousin or uncle or whoever he was. Still, it's been years now, and we have yet to see the creature come back even one time. My wife won't give me any answers, and I remain completely confused by the Dogman in the garbage cans. Werewolf in the attic. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I seen a werewolf peeking out of my attic last night, and tonight my brother and my father seen it. I was supposed to be asleep, but I'm writing this to you under the covers at this motel that we're spending the night at because, well, I can't sleep anyhow. When I seen it, I was outside the house in the backyard, and it was looking out the little window at the tippy top of the house, you know? He was watching me. I don't know for how long. I felt him staring at me before I turned around and started looking for him. I thought it was someone in the shadows up the side of the house, but when I looked over there, I didn't find anyone. After a while of this feeling just not going away, I started to look up at the windows in the house, wondering if someone in my family might be watching me, maybe. Well, when my eyes got all the way up to the attic window, I seen a dog looking back at me. He seemed a little surprised when our eyes finally met, and his head jerked back a little bit. Then he stood up and walked away from the window into the darkness, and I could see that he had shoulders. Dogs don't have shoulders, but this mofo did. He had a human torso, but dark and covered in fur, with his head kind of like a dark wolf, or at least a canine of some sort, I would say. I told my brother and my dad about it, and they both made fun of me. Mom told them to stop picking on me, but told me to stop making up stories. I think she was on their side, but just wanted them to be nicer to me about not believing me or something like that. I was telling them there was a man with a dog head living in our attic, and they didn't even want to go up there and look at it. Like, what was that all about? Anyway, that didn't matter for too long, because then earlier tonight my brother and my dad heard a noise in the hallway, and they saw that some wood had fallen from the ceiling. There was this sort of triangular hole looking up into our attic that had been opened when part of the ceiling fell down. When the two of them first looked up into that hole, they told me they saw a dog or wolf-like head with dark fur. Then it seemed to stand up and move away from the hole. I was like, yo, that was what I was telling you. So then Mom and Dad got into a big fight, because Dad wanted to go up there and see what was up in that attic. Mom was like, call the police, call animal control. She got really dramatic about it, but Dad was like, stand back, woman. Then he pulled the ladder down and he started climbing up there. So Dad's like halfway up the stairs, and he's looking around. And we're all like, what's up there, yo? And he's all like, be quiet, I can't hear nothing. And so we're quiet, right? And we're all standing around, and then bam, we hear something slam up in the attic, and Dad comes jumping down backwards into the hallway. Mom and my brother screamed and ran into their bedrooms, but Dad grabbed me as he fell back, so I was kind of stuck out there with him. I asked him what happened, and he started laughing. He said it was the wind blowing a plank of wood or something like that. See, there was this hole in the roof, or in the wall by the corner of the roof. He figured that's how the animal must have gotten in, and that's also how it must have escaped before Dad got up the stairs. This hole was too big for him to cover over, so that's why he drove us all to this motel to spend the night. In the morning, he's gonna get the attic repaired and clean it out so we can move back in. Personally, I hope this doesn't make the Dogman go completely away. I'm still gonna keep my eye out for him around the neighborhood. Although I wouldn't ever want to see him back inside our home again, I gotta admit, I'd sure love to get another look or two at the werewolf in the attic.
It's a classic pullover, play with the scary stories, got it. It's a classic pullover, put it in a stand-up go-to logo. Available in white, black, navy, gray, or pink. Link is in the description.
She's super cool, and that's no bosh. I'm talking about dear Tiffany Walsh. Please join us in thanking Tiffany Walsh for making this episode possible. Here to explain how you can help us stay online is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos, or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.